We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I wasn't supposed to be home early that day. My job usually kept me until 7, sometimes later, but a system outage sent everyone home at 4. I remember walking into the house expecting the usual. The faint smell of Claire's vanilla candles, her abandoned mug near the sink, the softness she always brought to a space even when she wasn't in it. Instead, I froze halfway down the hall. A man's voice. Low. Familiar. Then her laugh. Light. Girlish. The kind she hadn't used with me in months. I didn't burst in. Didn't storm toward the sound like any normal husband would. I just listened. Because for weeks I'd been drowning in suspicions that made no sense. Hoping I was paranoid. Praying I was wrong. Every late night, I'm exhausted. Every turned phone screen. Every cold shoulder in bed. It all suddenly aligned like pieces of a puzzle she never intended me to see. I stepped back quietly before they could hear me, my heartbeat pounding against my ribs so hard it hurt. If I confronted her right then, she would cry, deflect, swear it was harmless. And I knew myself well enough to know I'd probably believe her. She was the kind of person whose tears softened every hard edge in a room. So I walked out the back door, letting it shut behind me like nothing had happened. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Betrayal isn't loud at first. It's a slow, suffocating ache crawling up your spine. And as I sat there, barely breathing, something shifted inside me. A line snapped. A decision quietly formed. If she wanted to play me like I was naive, she was going to learn exactly who she married. But first, I needed clarity, not assumptions, not shadows, not moments overheard through a crack in the door. Real clarity. Over the next week, I became someone I never imagined. Observant, meticulous, calm in a way that should have scared me. Claire thought life was normal again. Morning coffee together, small talk about nothing, kisses on the cheek that felt like lies pressed against my skin. Her routines made everything easy. Gym at 6, work by 8, girl nights once a week. And her phone always face down. The man from that night had a name I'd heard 100 times from her office stories. Mason Clark, the funny co-worker, the one she claimed reminded her of her brother. Ironic. The more I observed, the more the truth unfolded in subtle, painful ways. The way her eyes lingered on his messages. The way she'd smile at her phone, then dim it quickly when she felt me near. The sudden urgency to work late, always followed by a strange distance in her voice. One evening, while she showered, her smartwatch buzzed on the nightstand. A preview lit the screen. Same time tomorrow. Last night was perfect. MC. My stomach dropped. My hands went ice cold. And yet, no explosion. No breakdown. Just a quiet, focused resolve spreading through my body like steel. I wasn't going to confront her with hurt. I was going to confront her with truth she couldn't run from. And I knew exactly how this needed to end. Not with shouting, not with a begging match, but with a moment she could never forget. But to do that, I needed someone she underestimated even more than me. Someone with more to lose. Someone whose world was also being played with. Mason's wife, Olivia. I remembered her from a holiday work dinner. Warm smile, gentle voice. A woman who looked like she gave every piece of herself to a man who didn't deserve her. She didn't know me well, but she knew my wife. And I had a feeling she'd know the truth even better. My chest tightened, breath shallow, as I scrolled to her name and hovered my thumb above call. This wasn't rage anymore. It was strategy, justice wrapped in calm. When I pressed the call button, I knew my life was about to split in two, but I had no idea just how much hers, and Claire's, would shatter. I didn't know what Olivia would say. For all I knew, she might hang up or accuse me of trying to stir trouble. But when she answered, her voice was soft, tired, like someone who'd been fighting silent battles for far too long. Hi, Ryan. Everything okay? Her concern hit me harder than I expected. She sounded like someone who already sensed something was wrong, but hadn't had the courage to look it in the eye. No, I said quietly, but I think you already know that. There was a pause, a shaky inhale. Is this about Mason? Her voice cracked slightly on his name, and that was all the confirmation I needed. She wasn't clueless. She was trapped in denial the same way I had been. Yes, I said. And Claire. Another silence, this one heavier. Then, in the smallest voice, I knew it. I knew something was off. She didn't ask for proof. She didn't accuse me. She didn't even react with anger. Instead, she sounded defeated. Like a woman who had spent months trying to convince herself everything was fine while her heart bruised itself against reality. Can we meet? I asked. Please, she whispered. We met the next day at a quiet coffee shop halfway between our neighborhoods. Olivia looked smaller than I remembered. Eyes swollen, shoulders hunched, her wedding ring twisted nervously on her finger. But beneath that fragility, there was a sharpness, a strength she hadn't tapped into yet. I could feel it. She slid into the booth across from me and whispered, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the laughing behind the closed door that day, the late nights, the messages, the smartwatch preview. Every detail spilled out of me like poison I'd been carrying in my bloodstream. By the time I finished, her hands were trembling on the table. "I thought he was just stressed," she said. "He stopped coming home for dinner. He said he needed to focus. He even changed his cologne." I noticed. I just didn't want to admit what it meant. That hurt, more than it should have. There's something deeply painful about realizing two good people were betrayed by the same selfish pair. "We need to be sure," I said. "Not shouting, not accusations. We need something they can't deny." Olivia's eyes lifted, and for the first time I saw a spark, anger, controlled and sharp. "What do you have in mind?" For a moment, the world around us blurred, like the air thickened with decisions we couldn't reverse once made. "I want them to face what they've done," I said slowly. "Not with screaming or throwing things. With truth. Hard, undeniable truth." Olivia nodded, wiping a tear. "I'm with you. Whatever you need." And with that, a strange partnership formed. Two strangers connected by heartbreak, by betrayal, by the kind of devastation that demands either destruction or rise. We chose rise. Over the next several days, we became quiet observers of our spouses' patterns. Not stalkers, not invaders, just people reclaiming the truth stolen from us. Claire was too comfortable, too sure I'd never question a thing. Every team dinner, every sudden overtime shift, every late arrival was further confirmation without her realizing she was giving herself away. One evening, Olivia texted me. "He told me he's coaching someone after work. He's never coached anyone." I replied, "Claire just said she has a meeting with her manager at 7. Same night, same lie pattern, same timing. Everything aligned." Then came the moment I knew her guard was completely gone. Claire walked into the kitchen, humming as she fixed her hair in the reflection of the microwave door. She looked happy, almost glowing. It twisted something deep inside me. "I might be late tomorrow," she said casually. "There's a training session at work." She didn't even look at me when she said it. She just swiped her lipstick across her mouth, like she wasn't lying to the man standing 3 feet away. I nodded calmly. "Okay." She smiled faintly and walked away. My hands tightened in a fist behind my back, not out of rage, but because the truth solidified one step further. She was gone. Not physically, but mentally and emotionally. She had already left our marriage long before I realized. That night, Olivia and I finally gathered the last piece we needed. A simple detail, a location ping that didn't match the destination she told me. A small lie, but enough to expose the entire web. "Tomorrow," I told Olivia on the phone. "Tomorrow," she echoed. We didn't plan anything dramatic or wild. Nothing illegal. Nothing extreme. Just something beautifully simple, painfully honest, and impossible to refute. I wanted Claire to walk right into her own truth. I wanted her to see the one person she never expected in my kitchen. I wanted the evidence to sit there on the table like a quiet judge waiting to read the verdict. But more importantly, I wanted her to understand the weight of what she had thrown away, not through anger, but through clarity. And Olivia, steadying her breath on the phone, whispered, "They won't see this coming." Neither would we, because the next evening would change the course of all 4 lives. Hers, mine, Claire's, Mason's, in a way none of us were fully prepared for. The next day felt unreal, like I was drifting through it rather than living in it. I woke up early and stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to Claire getting ready in the bathroom, humming softly like she had nothing to hide. Like the home she stood in wasn't built on lies. She stepped out in her usual polished outfit, hair loose around her shoulders, perfume strong and sweet. The same perfume she wore the night I heard her laugh with Mason behind that closed door. "You need anything before I go?" she asked, picking up her bag. I forced a small, neutral smile. "No, I'm good. Have a productive day." She didn't even kiss my cheek. She just smiled, distracted, distant, and walked out the front door like she couldn't wait to leave. And maybe she couldn't. What she didn't know was that Olivia and I already had everything in place. We didn't stalk them. We didn't follow them. We didn't need to. We simply connected the dots they'd sloppily left behind. By 5 p.m., Olivia arrived at my house. She looked different, still hurting, but composed. Her hair tied back, no makeup, eyes steady with a quiet determination. "You ready?" she asked. "More than you know." She stepped inside slowly, scanning the space like she was entering the truth she had been avoiding for months. The air felt heavy, charged, almost electric with what was about to unfold. I had already prepared everything we needed. A calm, clean kitchen, dinner simmering on the stove, printed screenshots, not abusive, not graphic, just factual messages, and my phone placed on the table, loaded with the audio clips I had saved when I overheard Claire through that door. Nothing excessive, nothing harmful, just truth. The kind of truth that leaves no room for excuses. Olivia stood beside me at the counter as we cooked. She chopped vegetables with slow, methodical movements while I stirred the sauce. For a moment, we looked like two friends sharing an ordinary evening. But nothing was ordinary about this. She broke the silence first. "Do you think they even realize how much they've wrecked?" I took a breath, steady but low. "No. People who lie this easily convince themselves no one will ever catch on." She nodded, her voice cracking slightly. "He told me last week that I was imagining things, that I should trust him more." I felt a tightness in my chest. Not attraction, not anything inappropriate, just a deep, shared understanding of what it feels like to love someone who chooses betrayal over honesty. "You deserved better than that," I said quietly. "So did you," she whispered. We continued working in silence for a while. Two betrayed spouses, hurt but grounded, preparing the setting that would finally expose everything. At 6:13 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Claire, running late again. Grabbing something small with Mason's team. Be home by 8. I felt nothing. Not sadness, not jealousy, just confirmation. Olivia read it too and exhaled shakily. She told me she didn't like him, that they barely talked at work. She lied to me too. I nodded. They lie to stay comfortable. Tonight, we're taking that comfort away. We finished cooking around 7 p.m., the kitchen warm with the smell of garlic and herbs. The table was set for 3, me, Olivia, and the truth. Not chaos, not revenge fueled by destruction, just accountability. We rehearsed nothing. We didn't need to. When the truth is strong enough, it speaks on its own. At 7:48 p.m., headlights swept across the living room window. I felt my pulse thump in my neck. Olivia straightened her posture, wiped her palms on her jeans, and took a steadying breath. The front door unlocked. I heard Claire's voice floating casually. "Babe, I'm home." Her tone was light, playful, the kind she used when she wasn't alone after work. The kind that made my stomach twist months ago before I learned to numb myself. She stepped into the dining room, still smiling, until she saw Olivia sitting right beside me at the table. The color drained from her face instantly. Her purse slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a soft thud. She didn't even blink. She just stared at us like she had walked into the wrong house. "Ryan," she whispered, voice trembling. What is this?" I lifted my eyes to hers, steady, calm, unshaken. "Dinner." Her gaze darted to Olivia, who sat quietly, hands folded, jaw tight but composed. Then Claire's eyes fell to the table, where the printed messages lay neatly beside my phone. She swallowed hard, throat bobbing, her breath turning sharp and uneven. "Ryan, I don't know what this is supposed to mean." Olivia spoke first, her voice softer than I expected. "It means we're done pretending." Claire staggered back a step like she'd been hit. "I can explain," she whispered desperately. "Ryan, please, just—" I shook my head slowly. "No stories, no excuses, no half-truths. Tonight, you're going to hear yourself." Then I tapped the play button on my phone. Her voice, the voice from the day I came home early, filled the room. Laughing, teasing, whispering things no married woman should whisper. Claire's knees buckled, her hand gripping the back of a chair to stay upright. Her eyes glistened, her lips trembling. Ryan, please don't do this. But it was already done. Her lies weren't hidden in shadows anymore. They were sitting in the open, at my table, staring her in the face. And we weren't even finished yet. Claire stood frozen, her eyes darting between me, Olivia, and the phone still glowing on the table. She looked like someone who suddenly realized she was standing in the middle of a truth she could no longer outrun. Her voice came out small, cracked. Ryan, please. Can we just talk privately? I held her gaze, steady and unmoved. We're talking right here. No hiding. Not anymore. Olivia stayed silent, but firm beside me. Her presence alone was enough to keep Claire from slipping into one of her rehearsed explanations. Claire wiped her cheek with a trembling hand. It wasn't what you think. I was stressed, and Mason was just someone I talked to. It didn't mean anything. Olivia let out a quiet, bitter laugh. He told me the same thing. It didn't mean anything. That's what people say when they've broken something they can't repair. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water, soft but devastating. Claire's breath hitched. I made mistakes, I know that, but can we try to fix this? Ryan, we have years together. You can't throw it away over. I cut her off gently but firmly. I didn't throw anything away, Claire. You did. And you didn't do it yesterday. You didn't do it last week. You've been choosing someone else for months. Tears spilled from her eyes, her voice shaking. I never meant to hurt you. I nodded slowly. I believe you. But intentions don't erase actions. She reached for my arm, desperate. I love you. Please let me explain everything. Let me try to make this right. I stepped back, her hand hovering in empty air. There's nothing to fix, I said quietly. She blinked rapidly, confusion and fear mixing in her expression. What are you saying? I motioned to the table where the documents lay. Simple, orderly, undeniable. I'm not yelling. I'm not begging. I'm not fighting. I'm telling you calmly that I'm done. I paused, and I think deep down, you've been done for a long time too. Olivia spoke beside me, her voice gentle but strong. We're both walking away, Claire. You and Mason could decide what you are without dragging us along anymore. Claire pressed her hands to her face, shaking her head as if denying reality could undo it. You talked to her? Behind my back? Ryan, how could you? I raised an eyebrow. You're really going to ask me about doing something behind your back? Her mouth snapped shut, tears streaming freely now. I walked to the drawer near the counter and pulled out a small box containing her spare keys, the ones she used to leave lying around like they meant nothing. I set them gently on the table. You can stay with your sister tonight, I said softly. Tomorrow you can come for your things. I won't make a scene. I won't sabotage your life. But I won't stay in a marriage where I'm the only one choosing us. She stared at the keys like they were pieces of her future slipping through her fingers. Ryan, I'm begging you. Her voice cracked so painfully that for a second, I almost felt the pull of old emotions, old love. But after everything, the deceit, the late nights, the laughter behind closed doors, something inside me had finally locked into place. A quiet acceptance. You didn't lose me tonight, I said gently. You lost me months ago, when you stopped talking to me and started confiding in someone else. Olivia stood slowly, her expression soft but resolute. And Mason will be hearing from me tonight. I won't stay with someone who treats vows like they're optional. Claire collapsed into the nearest chair, sobbing into her hands, the sound filling the room with a kind of grief that comes only when all masks fall away. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I didn't celebrate her pain. I simply walked to the doorway, pausing long enough to say the last words she'd hear from me as her husband. I hope you find the honesty you couldn't give me. She looked up, red-eyed, devastated. Please don't go. But I stepped outside anyway, breathing in the cool night air, a freedom I hadn't felt in years. Olivia followed quietly, and for a moment we stood together beside her car, two people linked by heartbreak, but no longer owned by it. She touched my arm gently. You did the right thing. I nodded, exhaling slowly. So did you. As she drove away, I felt something unfamiliar settling in my chest. A strange, steady calm. Not revenge. Not victory. Closure. And for the first time in a long time, I finally felt like myself again.